Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to round number 7 of the Grid Championship, brought to you by RaceFace and Mettlestate. My name is Stephen Koenig, and joining me in the commentary box is none other than the world's slowest alien, but also a big voice in the sim racing scene at the moment, Janneman Press. Janneman, how are you doing this evening?
Goedenavond, Steven. Ja, we zijn live vanuit Zandvoort. En ik denk dat het een geweldige race gaan worden. You didn't understand that, nee?
Can I plead the fifth on that? Anyone would like to help me as a fellow Pommy? It would be interesting.
What I said is, good evening, Steven. We're coming to you live from Zandvoort, and I think it's going to be an awesome race. No, but it wasn't Dutch.
Well, it's going to be an awesome one. Was it Baby Dutch?
No idea. That was Google Translate Dutch.
Okay, all right. Because I know sometimes they say Afrikaans is Baby Dutch. But, ladies and gentlemen, round number 7 of Zandvoort for the Grid Championship. It's going to be interesting for the Grid Championship. Season 3, we're coming to the closing stages of it, and all the drivers are going to be pushing their luck. Currently, qualifying is happening at the moment, with quite a few cars really going and pushing the limits of what they can do. But Janneman, you have got who is standing where in the championship. Why don't you take us through what's happening out there?
Right, leading out in front, we've got Cody Sherritt. He's on 229 points. Then followed closely behind by Christian Deploy on 214. Third place, we've got Ryan Ottens on 187. Fourth place, Daniel Rowe on 176. Then we've got Bego Grobler in 5th place on 154. We've got Porzio. He's in 6th place on 149. Meyer, he's on 115. 8th place is Greiling on 108. And also on 108 is Tariq Adam. And rounding out our top 10 is Morgan McCall on 102 points. So very different from the Sprint Series, Stephen. This championship is by no means decided, with 2 races left to go tonight. We're in Zandvoort, and next week we are at the new track, Valencia. So everything's still to race for.
It's definitely going to be an exciting one. And with that prize pool of 10,000 Rand on the line, sponsored by Mettlestate, it is going to be a proper race down to the line. It's been a very interesting championship. Now we're at Zandvoort. This is one of your favorite circuits, one of my least favorite circuits, despite having good results at it. It's not really the circuit I enjoy. I prefer Brands Hatch. But Zandvoort being one of these trickier circuits where we're seeing a lot of tire degradation coming into play, drivers having to really figure out what's going to work for them and how they're going to move forward in this race. And lots of questions have been coming on about that mandatory 2 pit stop of what's going to happen. Remember, they also cannot go and change their tires. They have to really try and figure out what's going to work for them for that specific one. They've got 2 tires to deal with, one for qualifying, one for the race, or you can utilize your qualifying tires for the race. That really does put a spanner in the works, especially an hour and 20 minutes on the circuit is no joke.
Yeah, I mean, we saw last night the guys were struggling with the tires as well. We saw last night what effect new tires can have on a car. We spoke last night to some of the drivers. I mean, they said this is one of the physical tracks, because it's one corner after the other. Some of the tracks are very narrow. Some parts of the tracks are, very tight corners that you need to go through. Not really meant for side-by-side action. So not a lot of breathing room. I mean, you basically only have the pit straight that you can relax for a couple of seconds, and then it's back to business for the rest of the lap. So,
well, actually finding out something very interesting about that is a couple of drivers have been complaining about after 55, well, going into about 40 minutes of the race, they've been complaining of left front tire pressure decrease. And now that tells me from running over curbs, and that is hurting the tires. And as we know about the circuit, it does become a little bit of a challenge for the drivers, and they're having to try and figure out how to go over the curbs, utilize as much as possible, not to get off tracks, well, not to fall off a circuit, but at the same time not to damage. I mean, take a look at Daniel Rowe out there. He's having a great time. He's currently lying in first place with a 134.5. But how much stress is he putting onto the tires, especially with the new model that allows more for more flex in the tire walls, that's going to start impacting over time. And you start wondering of how much is the tires going to take and how much is the chassis. And because there is chassis stress in ACC, and how much of the car's suspensions are going to deal with. Ryan Ottens is in second place. We saw Daniel Rowe and Ryan Ottens run together for the GT3 Sprint Series. They were working in tandem with one another. Giovanni Porzio is out there in third place. He's been making some great strides at the moment, getting beaten out by Cody Sherritt, who moves up into third place. Cody Sherritt at the moment in the fight for the championship and is really trying to lead the charge at the moment. He hasn't been having the greatest of runs, but has been keeping fairly consistent on his times out. Giovanni has been a up-and-coming and improving every single time he goes out. Bego Krobler has been improving his stuff, and he's lying in fifth place at the moment. Henry Mayer, part of the Genesis Esports Academy team, has really been putting himself on the radar for the Genesis team because they've been a little bit concerned about the Academy team getting a bit closer to the sharp end of the field. And I know there has been chats of guys wanting to see what more can be done with the Academy team. Jonas Kraling, he's also been improving. He's lying in 8th place. 9th is Daniel De Villiers. Actually had a chat with him a little bit earlier. He is sporting the classic Lamar colors. And for everyone that doesn't know this is the renowned Mazda 787B colors, the Mazda 787B that won Le Mans and was the only successful Mazda 787 that came out of Mazda with that 4-rotor motor. He's currently lying in 10th place. Ronaldo Boersma putting himself in, Daniel De Villiers in 10th. Ronaldo Boersma moving himself into 9th. He's been battling with just outbreaking himself into the corners. Especially the last bit of the chicane. So this has been a very interesting one to see, and how the Porsche reacts. Now, I've got a question to you. What's going to be more beneficial? Having a lot more rear rotation in the cars, like your mid-engines, or is it going to be the front engines that are able to take the curbs a little bit easier than your more mid-engines that get a bit squirrelish under braking?
Well, let's refer back to what happened in the sprint race, 55 minutes. Front engine car kind of ran away with it. Second place was a mid-engine car. But, Steve, I'm going to say it's going to depend on the driver, not just the car itself. It's kind of that statement we always say, he who makes the least mistakes tend to do well, because face it, Zandvoort is a difficult track. It's not the easiest of tracks around, and mistakes around this track is a real thing, is a real possibility. So personally, I think it's more got to do with keeping the car on track than what it's got to do front or mid-engine car.
Yeah, and we also taking a look with the pit lane is going to be a very interesting one. We saw it come into effect more than once last night for the GT3 Sprint Series, because you have to peer off on the straight, you have to try and line yourself up. It's very short to slow yourself down to 50 kilometers an hour. It also exits right as you're getting into the apex of turn 1, and that is going to change the game up for everyone, because they have to be aware of the cars coming out of the pits, especially with two mandatory pit stops. The drivers are going to have to figure out. Now, I know that a lot of drivers have been going one lap, pull it in, get it done, get the first one out the way and concentrate on the second one. But we saw that impacting negatively, but also going too far into the race hurt them as well. So there has to be that middle ground. I don't think halfway through the race is going to be the option. As we see Alan Patterson, he's in the Silk Cut Jag livery. And that's also one of the cars that the Silk Cut Jag went and dominated at Le Mans. But we've got to keep an eye on what the guys are going to do, what the strategies are going to be like, and where they're going to be able to move forward. We have been seeing a lot in the background where the guys have been talking about how the races have been through the season. And we've seen, like last night, unfortunately, Morgan McCall having load shedding going and taking him right out of the race did impact him severely. We've seen a lot of mechanical failures coming into play. Do you think that all the little bits of work done behind the scenes, getting ready for tonight, considering it's the second last round of the season. The championship is so open that the guys they've worked out as many niggles that can be sorted out, and just hoping that they've duct taped Murphy to the chair outside by the trailer.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you mentioned there's 2 races to go, so you're going to do everything in your ability to ensure that nothing goes wrong. But Murphy is Murphy, Stephen. You know, sometimes the things go wrong that are outside of your control or not within your control, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it if you haven't got the correct contingency measures in place.
This is the thing where it's going to come down to all luck. But with this circuit, it's a very follow the leader circuit. There's not actually many places that you can go for a pass, but there's a lot of places where you can make up time and try and survive in terms of keeping your tires going, keeping the fuel going. And guys have been running it very, very fine in fuel. I know for the last race, we had some of the cars crossing the line with only 0.1 of a litre. They just freewheeled across the line just to try and get themselves across there. People have been risking it of like trying to move themselves a little bit further up through the rankings.
It's true. I mean, strategy does play a role, especially around a track like this. So you'll do everything you can there as well to score 0.1, 0.2 of a second wherever you can. And then you run into different kind of risks. You mentioned maybe running out of fuel because you've calculated to the milliliter, and then you push the car just too hard, and you run a couple of mils, 500 mils short at the end of the race. You've mentioned guys finishing with 0.1 of a liter in the tank. So I think a lot of the risks the guys will take will be calculated risks. There's a gap. Where is there a gap to get out in that clear air as well?
Well, I've got to say we've got quite a few people out in the RaceFace grandstand and at the Mettlestate grandstand going and putting in a bit of a party, lots of chats and a lot of trying to find things out, trying to get a bit of information on. So it's good to see the guys joining us, and a big thank you to everyone joining us in both the Mettlestate grandstands and the RaceFace grandstands. Good to have you guys around. And I know there is a spark of contention of what's happening in terms of whether penalties are coming into play and what's been done. And I'm sure Bertus Hugo from RaceFace will be able to give us an understanding of what's been done behind the scenes. You and I have been keeping our head out of it and just watching what people have been discussing about in terms of strategies at this point. And I've got to say, having a chat to De Villiers a little bit earlier, the old hitman, going and giving a bit of an insight of what the tires are doing. It's rather interesting to know that the left front takes the most beating around the circuit, and that people have been noticing there's been flats starting to happen.
Well, it's understandable because having a look at the circuit, there's a couple of high-speed right-handers. There's a couple of slow speed to medium speed right-handers. I mean, this section that we see in Kubi going through now, it's just right-hander after right-hander after right-hander, and now you get a break. You get to your first left-hander. So it's understandable that the left front takes a beating, especially in the last sector of the lap where you've got those two medium to high-speed right-handers, and the guys are trying to, especially on the exit of the second last corner, they're trying to gain as much time as possible, trying to take as much curve as possible, as we see Clue there. And so it's understandable that the left front is the one that's taking the beating, and you're going to have to try and look after it.
Well, while we're getting ready to go to the track, let's head to a bit of our ads just to go and pay the bills. So we'll see you guys shortly. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Well, as the grid's lining up, let's go through who is starting where for the Grid Championship. Brought to you by Mettlestate and RaceFace. Season number 3 lined up. Cody Sherritt starting in first place. Daniel Rowe in second place. Ryan Ottens in third. Ronaldo Boersma. Giovanni Pozero. Christian Deploy. Morgan McCall. Henry Mayer. Bago Krobler. Lionel Clue moving himself into 10th place. Johannes Kraling in 11th. 12th going to Daniel De Villiers. Darren Miller, Sanjan Pillay, Alan Patterson, Nicholas Manuel, Cameron De Bastos, Mahayath Musa, Justin Lotus, Tini Nkube, Andre Saradio, Essie Esterhays, Dean Kabasa, Grant Sebastian, Loic Randall, and Ramona Yonka rounding out our 26 car field. A bit smaller than what we had originally, but considering of how late it is into the championship, this is something we do see quite a fair amount where the guys tend to taper off where everything is going. So it's gonna be a very, very interesting run for everyone to try and claw their way forward.
Yeah, absolutely, it's going to be, and as you mentioned, a little bit smaller field than normal, but I think, Steve, all the important players are here, and unfortunately a couple of guys can't make it tonight. I think load shedding does sometimes play a role, but we are set to go, and we've got a short formation lap, so not a lot of time to get heat into tires, heat into the brakes for turn 1. Turn 1 is a crucial braking area, but I think we're in for an interesting one, and I'll give the start of the race over to you.
That's it. So lined up on the line, everyone getting ready, trying to build a bit of heat. Cody Sherritt leading out, Daniel Rowe in second, looking to try and get the jump. Ryan Ottens, Ronaldo Boersma, Giovanni. And turn 1 is a concern. It's also known as Tarzan. I tend to call it George of the Jungle because you got to watch out for the tree at the end as they get ready to rock and roll. Jim waiting to wave the flag and drop the lights. So Jim, over to you to go and call it green. Everyone lined up, and away we go. And it looks like off to a fantastic start for everyone. No slowdowns at the moment as they all come launching into turn 1, looking 3 wide. One of the Genesis getting stuck into the middle and having to filter his way through. But that is a bit of a start. It does look like Morgan McCall is dropping back a little bit. Cody Sherritt keeping ahead of Ryan Ottens. Ryan Ottens getting pushed out by Daniel Rowe. Daniel Rowe managing to get past Ronaldo Boersma, having a bit of contact. Oh, and that looks like Lionel Clue in the Lamborghini getting twisted round. Has lost out a bit of drive, and it's gained a few positions. Christian Deploy trying to go side by side with Ronaldo Boersma as they go hard braking, a little bit of rubbing as they make their way through. And take a look, Giovanni trying to capitalize as well, manages to muscle his way by, locks it in and managing to get past. Ronaldo Boersma dropping further down. Now got Henry Mayer trying to look up the inside. Johannes Kraling, he's trying to go defense of Morgan McCall, who tries to look up the inside of him as they go into a bit of a battle. But it's turning into one heck of a start. Unfortunately for Lionel, losing out a lot of drive on the start, getting twisted around. That's going to impact his race. And he's going to have to try and figure out what's going to work best for him to claw his way through the field. But the tires must be taking a bit of strain. It's going to be heated up to oblivion at this point. He's going to have to rethink all strategies, along with a couple of other drivers that landed up with slight nudges here and there, trying to go for avoidance in a very, very tight part of the circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. If you get turned around, you get into an incident, as we see some early pit stop cars diving into the pits in the background, Stephen. So guys trying to get those pit stops out the way. One of them, Morgan McCall, he's decided to take an early pit stop, but out in front, things are... The guys are really battling it out. We've got Cody Sherritt and Daniel Rowe. Daniel Rowe managing to get past him. And are we going to see what we see last night? If Daniel Rowe gets in that clear air, can he, get out in front and put some clear air between him and Cody Sherritt? Right behind, we've got Ryan Ottens. So at this stage, Sherritt is kind of in a hybrid sandwich at this stage.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult run, and you can see Christian Deploy trying to close down the gap to the likes of Cody Sherritt. We do have a stop-go 32nd for Lionel.
Roundabout.
Loic Randall getting that stop go 30 seconds. It does look like we lost Lionel, unfortunately. He wasn't able to get that car back out. Loic, far as I'm aware, and I'm just trying to find him on the table, Loic, I want to give a heads up to. He's actually driving very, very ill at the moment. So one of the things is, he said he just wants to try and get it out there, get around the circuit, and really go in for a fight. So I've got to give it props. If you're not feeling well, and this circuit does give you a little bit of a hard time, along with everything else, to keep going is a lot of muscle. But 30-second stop go is going to hurt him a bit. Ronaldo Bursma pulling into the pits. Cody Sherritt looking up on the inside of Daniel Rowe. Daniel closes off the front of Cody Sherritt.
I think Cody is desperate to get out of that second position because he's got Ryan Ottens breathing down his neck. You know, as I said to you, in this stage, he's kind of in a team sandwich and he's trying to get out of it, trying to get past Daniel Rowe in order to get out of that sandwich. But we all know Zandvoort is not the easiest tracks to pass on, Steven. So, you know, it is a bit of a follower leader and he needs to close up on that Mercedes in order to pass it down the pit straight, or maybe down the short back straight we're going to see later on, and try and make a move on the inside. But at this stage, slotting back in behind Daniel Rowe, trying to close the gap and get onto the rear bumper of that Mercedes.
Well, it's going to be a very, very interesting one to see how it all works through. And you've got to remember, Christian Deploy is second in the championship, so he also wants to get involved in this fight as quick as possible. He doesn't want to hang around. Cody Sherritt is currently leading out the championship, so he's trying to really close the distance on it. And, well, I do think we're going to see where the guys are trying to battle it out, where they've got to try and move a bit more forward. It's going to be an interesting one, and I wonder what the pit strategies are going to be. We've seen a couple of cars, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20th, right down to last. The guys all going into the pits for that early pit stop to come into effect. And as we see, one of the cars that I think is Darren Miller that's ahead, he's watching his review mirrors like no tomorrow at this point, and realizing the leaders are quickly catching down on him. So utilizing the more famous Jägermeister livery that was on the M1 Pro car. It was on a Porsche 956 at one point. There was quite a few different cars that ran that sort of livery. Now trying to utilize the spirit of Le Mans to pull away from this little battle going on. Mercedes and the likes of Genesis. And considering it's a team battle, it's something you don't want to get too involved in. I see Johannes Kraling has come off circuit, and he had a bit of contact as well. So let's see if we can go back about 30 seconds. And this is something we're going to see more and more regularly as the guys are pushing the boundaries on this very tight circuit. There is no room to play with. Going up the inside of Loic, contact between Loic and himself, and De Villiers just getting stuck. Oh, yeah. Not quite sure on that rejoin. That's going to be looked at. But De Villiers, unfortunately, thinking to go to the outside, lands up in a bit of a sandwich. And, well, that's never a nice thing to suddenly arrive and then go, well, now what?
Yeah, you know, we've had it once or twice when you come around a corner and there's just a car stationary, and it's exactly that. You say, now what?
Yeah, you kind of
just use other language.
You just kind of stop and have to reconsider what things are. As we see Christian Deploy trying to close down on this little pack. He is caught behind one of our back markers. Giovanni also trying to close down the distance. Henry Mayer keeping in tow. We're starting to see the teams coming into effect. Bego Krobler in 7th place. He wants to try to close down. Justin Lotus trying to get a little bit closer. Dean Kabasa in 9th place, getting ahead of Sanjan Pillay. Sanjan Pillay trying everything he can. It does look like he's got a bit of wear and tear on the car, so he might have slight scrapes from the start of the race coming into effect. And all of these, you don't want to have slight damage on the car, because that is going to wear the car down rather severely.
Yeah, especially around a track like this, which is one corner after the other. You kind of need all the aero you can get. As we go back to Cody Sherritt, he's still in 2nd place, following Daniel Rowe around with Ryan Ottens closely behind. Christian Deploy, we see in the background, is in 4th place. I think at this stage, Stephen, Cody Sherritt is willing Christian de Ploy along to come and just put a little bit of pressure on the back of Ryan Ottens.
It's definitely going to be a very, very interesting one to try and close it down. And strategy is going to come into play here, where the guys are going to have to figure out what's going to happen and how they're going to work forward in this. This is going to be a very react to the situations. I wonder, as we see Miller actually moving out the way, he's going to slow down. Gotta say, very clever move. We don't get to see that too often. Guys actually backing off. Bago Krobler coming into the pits. I do apologize. But we see the back markers back off on a straight line. Try and allow the gap to close up. Well, get the guys past you and continue on your race without affecting, because knowing that it's a bit of follow the leader the rest of the circuit. So, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting one for the guys to move forward. What the strategies are going to be. It's going to be interesting to see what the tires are going to look like over the duration. I know a couple of guys have pitted and they haven't taken their set of tires, so they're still running on scrub tires. So when I talk about scrub, these are ones they used in qualifying that they're going to have to try and figure out what works best for them at this point. Henry Mayer, he's going after his teammate, closing down 0.4 of a second. Justin Lotus trying to catch up to them. Dean Kabasa in 8th, 9th is Sanjay Pillay, SAS up into 10th. Daniel De Villiers in 11th. First of everyone that's pitted is Ronaldo Borsma. We saw lap 1 going for the pit stop. He was stopped in the box for about 5.1 seconds. We estimating the average pit stop just for fuel, no tires, is going to be about 30 seconds entrance to exit. These are things for the teams to be considered, and how they're going to be able to move themselves forward. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting one to that, and how they're going to move forward. So the question comes out to everyone out there in the grandstands. I'd love to hear the information in terms of the grandstands of the tire wear, because a lot of the guys sitting in the grandstands, they understand what these cars do in tire wear. They've seen it, they've experienced it. But I'd like to get people's opinions of when's going to be a good time for a pit stop to be done, to get those 2 mandatory pit stops out the way for the driver. So there's a bit of homework out to the grandstand. But the other man, I'm going to ask that same question out to you of what's going to be the right idea.
Well, Stephen, I think most of these guys would have done the long runs. They would have found out in their practice sessions how long these tires are capable of running on. Of course, it's not exact science, because you're hot lapping at that stage. You're not in a race. You're not putting the car offline. You're not putting it on the marbles. But they would have a rough idea how long they can push it before the tire starts going. Secondly, I mentioned earlier that now would be the time to have somebody in your ears that can do the calculations, because as part of your practice, as we also sometimes do, we do the practice pit stops, time from pit entry to pit exit, how long does it take to refuel, change tires, and then you can calculate back to where you would feed back in. So for instance, you mentioned it takes about 30 seconds. So the crew chief or the pit boss can go and calculate who's 30 seconds plus behind you, where can you filter in. And by doing so, you sometimes will have to change your strategy on the fly, because if you're going to pit now and you're going to come back out in traffic, might not be a good idea. You might need to tend to keep on pushing, but keeping in mind how long the tires will still be able to keep going. Look, we're only 12 minutes into the race, so at this stage the tires should still fairly be fresh, but I think in about 20 minutes to 30 minutes from now, that's not going to be the case.
Well, I want to actually point out here that we've got 2 of the biggest teams in ACC in South Africa at the moment having a monstrous fight between Hybrid Academy and Genesis at the moment on circuit, with different strategies at play. Bago was an early pit stop from what I could see, which was different to what Genesis is at play here, and how they trying to work their drivers. They trying to go a little bit longer into the race. Do you think that Bago Krobler was just a little bit further down, a bit too far down, and they opted to go and get him in the pits to be more of that guinea pig sort of style? Get out there and just really try what you can. So you see Sanjay Pillay. me going and dropping off circuit, and I think this is something we see.
Wheel on the grass. I'll put money on. I'll put money on wheel on the grass.
Ran out wide, probably got it on the curb. We're about to see it in just a couple of seconds. Into the corner, tucks it in, goes out wide.
We should have put money on that.
Yeah, understeer, spins it round, and just
well
bouncing
done for
around.
keeping it out the wall.
So, there's another thing to bring up. This track is not flat anywhere. You're in for a fight. No, wherever you go, you're going to ramp it, you're going to bounce it, you're going to send it flying. It is going to impact. And it's a good thing that Assetto Corsa Competizione doesn't have underfloor damage, because this circuit would ensure that you smashed your underfloor carriage properly. And Sanjin Pillay would have smashed the bottom of the motor, the actual the sump, and just put oil all over the grass at that point.
I mean, the guys racing on Tuesday evenings, they will know what we're talking about. It's that dreaded distinctive sound, Steven, that you hear, then you know, yep, that's not a one piece anymore.
That sounded like it should be attached to something.
Yeah.
So if we head a little bit back, 16th and 15th place, this is Alan Patterson and Mahath Musa. They're going out at one another, having a good little tussle. Mahath Musa has been improving all season. Alan Patterson ran out a little bit wide, but is now going to play the follow game and try and follow his way through, maybe saving tyres a little bit more. But in a race like this, and this is something I do want to I do want to bring up, is it better to fight in a race like this, or is it better to come off the gas, stop focusing on taking a monstrous attack and go more on the lines, as we see Christian Deploy actually dropping back behind Giovanni and Henry Mayer, and that was very distinctive of a team decision of saying drop back, stop the fight, let the guys pull forward. So there was a team decision there of note. But back to my question, is it worth fighting, or is it worth following at this point?
Spoken about it before, that following can actually be a strategy, and we saw in the previous race that it is actually a strategy that can work, where you're not really fighting the guy ahead of you, but you're keeping really close to him. You're filling those rearview mirrors up, and what the aim of it is you try to get him to mirror watch. You do a couple of mock looks on the in or the outside. You just want him to start mirror watching, because on a tight track like this, Steven, it takes milliseconds to watch in a mirror and take your eyes off the road, and that can lead into a mistake. We actually saw it in the previous race, and guys effected a pass in that way, just by putting the pressure on there but not actually going for the pass.
That's it. And so far, Daniel Rowe leading out, Cody Sherritt very close behind, is ensuring to put a lot of pressure onto the back of him. Third place, Ryan Ottens, Giovanni Porzio in fourth, fifth, Henry Mayer, Christian Deploy in sixth, Justin Lotus in seventh, Dean Cabasa in eighth, ninth is SAS, 10th is Daniel the Hitman de Villiers, Sanjin Pillay in 11th, Ronaldo Boersma, Morgan McCall, Nicholas Manuel, Mahath Musa, Alan Patterson, Andre Serradio, Cameron de Bastos, Bego Krobler, Johannes Kraling, Ramona Yonka, Tini Nkube, Grant Sebastian, Darren Miller. We have lost 2 cars out of the 26 car field. We've got 24 cars out, but the person that is running in last place at the moment is Janneman Price with his Prius.
Thanks.
Sorry, I had to chuck it out there.
Well, at least the closest Mike Toyota will get to a hybrid is the battery to start it.
Now, I've got a very serious question. As we're seeing this is the closest battle currently.
Yes, it's heavy on fuel.
Fair enough.
Oh, isn't that the question? Sorry.
No, it's definitely a thing to bring up. It is just not easy on fuel. In a championship, round number 7, points are becoming very crucial at this point, and maximizing your points. So you've gone from a very strong game in terms of, okay, got to race for position, got to be in first place from now, to starting to try and figure out what's going to be able to give you enough points to keep ahead. If you cannot secure your best position, what's going to be the secondary position that you want to go for? Ryan Ottens does look to the inside. Cody Sherritt defends it, goes to the inside of Daniel Rowe, tries to lock it. Daniel Rowe going and holding it back. But in the situation like what we are in at the moment, where the championship is wide open for quite a few drivers, you've got to have thoughts out, okay, I need to be in position 6 or position 7 at the least to ensure that I maximize enough points to carry through to round 8 at Valencia.
Yeah, well, it's exactly what I did, or still do in championships. If you're not in contention for the championship itself, you start racing rivals, and you start looking out for them on track, or if you've got somebody in your ears, they start looking out for them on track to let you know where they are. So, for instance, you are fighting, and this is purely an example, you're fighting somebody for 5th place in the championship, and at this stage you're running 7th in, or 8th or 9th or 10th in the race, but they are only 12th. I mean, you're sitting quite comfortably. But if they are ahead of you, you need to make up the positions in order to beat them. So you're not racing for a championship, but you're starting to race rivals at this stage of the season.
Yeah, you've found your matches, you found who you want to go for, and that's the targets that you want to beat. And I wholeheartedly agree with it, because you've got to give yourself something to go for, some sort of charge through it. It's something that, a lot of people will get sucked into first, second, third, who's the guys right at the top. But we've got to remember that the guys further down are also racing in the championship. They also have their own fights. They're also trying to push themselves a little bit more, to get a little bit further up. And it doesn't matter whether you're in Pro, Pro-Am, Am, Gold, Silver, any of the different classes. You're in your own race. You're in your own championship fight. You've got to ensure that that's going to work out for you and not worry about the guys ahead of you. And we've had this before, where the faster cars tend to catch up on you. You're in your own fight. You're about 4 seconds slower, 2 seconds slower. And you start thinking, okay, what do I need to do to ensure that I don't lose time? And I know these guys want to arrive on me, and as a faster car, you've got to be well aware of the races around you and say, okay, well, they can't just evaporate into thin air. So what's going to be the best opportunity that both parties are going to come out of it, and not risking it to get a bit of damage onto the car?
Yeah, I mean, especially when you've got a close race like this out in front with first, second, and third. I mean, they are running within a second from first to third. Now, they're starting to make their way up to 23rd place Grant Sebastian. They're about 8 seconds behind him. So Grant is in his own race, but he's going to have 3 cars bearing down on him, and he's going to try and have to let them pass on a tight and twisty track like this without losing too much time. And it's an art. I would say it's an art to do that type of racing and let the faster cars get past you.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be a bit of an interesting one. Just taking a look. The Sasquatch has fallen off a circuit and gone grazing. And Cameron de Bastos was keeping ahead of Bego Frobler. And it just looked like he decided that, well, the Sasquatch wanted to be a herbivore instead of a meat eater. Dives into the corner. That Porsche looking between.
Well on the grass.
That's it. Just straight lines it. And I do think he turned the wheel slightly as he was bouncing around. And that was just to try and get himself back on circuit. But that's something we've seen a lot of. And we spoke about it. We touched on it last night. For anyone that never joined for the RaceFace GT3 Sprint Series. But your natural reaction when you're racing is, if you fall off a track, you want to rejoin as quick as possible. You want to turn into the circuit. You want to get back on the tar. That's where the grip is. Go. But if you've fallen off track, you've got a genuine problem of trying to slow yourself down. And if you turn, you upset the car, you change the weight where it's moved, and you actually cause a bigger problem for yourself. So the ideal one is to sort of slow it down in a straight line and bring it back in a more controlled manner. And especially when you're getting those bounces where it's jumping you up and down, up and down. It's something of a more refined art for the drivers, and it's something that the drivers are teaching themselves, moving forward, and seeing what's going to be of benefit for them. So these are the little things that's got to go on. Now, we've got a couple of very interesting runs happening at the moment. Christian Floyd getting past Henry Mayer. But we've got 3-car trains. Like 20, 21st, 22nd, and 1st, 2nd, 3rd are in a 3-car train. It is 21 degrees out there, so the guys have opened up their brake ducts. They have allowed air to come through the front car, like what Daniel Rose got, or Ramona Yonka in this case. They've opened up the brake ducts. They're allowing as much air to come in as we see Tini and Kube running out wide. That's allowed Janus Kraling to get side by side with him. Oh, a little bit of bump and barge there. No harm, no foul, as they're able to get going. But do you think in a situation like Cody Sherritt, Ryan Ottens, where they're constantly in a tow, they within 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 of a second of one another, that they're having that air being restricted, and those tires and the brakes starting to get a little bit more of a damage to it? One thing that we do notice is Henry Mayer, he actually came up with a yellow, is brake fade is a thing that you will feel after an hour, especially if the things get too hot. So you've got to try and maneuver your way out of an issue. As you see Mayer dropping a wheel off a dirt. Once again, that's all coming into play. And you can
corner.
And you could see the steering starting to counter steer, trying to turn back on the circuit before it bounced in and jumped its way back onto the circuit. So we're starting to see more and more of guys pushing the boundaries, but running so close to one another. Do you think it's becoming a detriment? Because I know that your brakes start fading and that pedal travel becomes longer and longer and longer to slow the car down. And that's just because everything has got a lot hotter, and it requires you to just put a little bit more force to create more friction, which in turn creates more heat, and it just becomes a knock-on effect over time.
It does. And to be very honest with you, Stephen, if I was Piggy in the middle in a 3-car battle, I would be on the team radio and ask, can we change strategy? Question, because I want to get out of it and maybe see if there's other part of clear air around to run in, and maybe try and affect the undercut. We are now about 25 minutes into the race. Maybe change of strategy is on the cards. I don't know, but I don't want to be stuck in the middle of a 3-car battle, especially if it's a 3-car battle and I've got teammates in front and behind me.
That's it. Daniel Rowe in first place, Cody Sherritt in second, third is Ryan Otten, Giovanni Pulzio in fourth, fifth is Christian Ploy, Henry Mayer, Justin Lotus, Dean Cabasa, Daniel De Villiers, Essie Esterhays breaking away from Sanjan Pillay, who got ahead of Ronaldo Buesma. Ronaldo saying, listen, I'm coming back for that position. Don't be too worried about that. Nicholas Manuel, Morgan McCall in 13th. He's keeping ahead of Nicholas Manuel. Good to see Morgan back out there after the load shedding went and hurt him quite a bit last night. He was on a really good roll. Mahath Musa in 15th, 16th, Bago Krobler, Andre Serradio in 17th, 18th, Cameron De Bastos, followed by Ramona Yonka, Tini and Kube, Piggy in the middle of this 3-car train, Janus Railing trying to trail him down and utilize the braking of the Lamborghini. Grant Sebastian 22nd, 23rd, Alan Patterson and Darren Miller in 24th at the moment. Alan Patterson and Darren Miller, oddly enough, have done both their pit stops. They have completed both their pit stops. I think it's a bit early, personally, to complete both your pit stops, but maybe there's a thought process of trying to get it out the way and get into a rhythm, and knowing that there's going to be a bit of traffic, as we see Daniel Rowe getting past, and so is Cody Sherritt, and also Ryan Otts, one of our back markers, not getting too much in the way, and Grant Sebastian saying, listen, I'm slowing up, you guys come past me, have your fight, don't want to be a part of it, I'm going to keep my train on this.
You've mentioned Alan Patterson and them. 52 minutes left in the race. That's essentially the sprint race of last night. So they've got, on-track knowledge of what the car does over 55 minutes. And, maybe they thought, we did it last night. We might as well do it again tonight. Go long on that last stint. The car didn't feel too bad last night. So we hope the same applies for tonight.
Well, that's the thing, we've got to keep an eye out. But you know, just taking a look to the grandstands, there is a bit of chat going on with guys in the VIP pits of both the RaceFace and also with the Grid Mettlestate out on Twitch. So Twitch has got their own grandstands where guys have been discussing and having an absolute ball, seeing the racing really at the height of it, and seeing the best of the best in South Africa duke it out and see how they can really claw their way through. But I just want to put a reminder to everyone out there, that aspiring sim racer that's looking at this and going, these aliens with their times of 1:35.5s as their fastest lap times, there's no ways I'm going to catch these oaks, but I still want to have a race. There is other tiers that you can go and race with, guys, so it's welcome to both the more advanced drivers, the new guys, everyone that wants to get a part in and have a bit of fun in the racing scene. It's more than welcome, which is always fantastic to see out there, guys, just bringing in new talents that have been really mixing it up and changing the way that the racing is happening. I've just got to also put a big shout out to the teams that have been elevating themselves. They've been trying to get quicker, better, faster, applying new strategies, applying new tech to try and figure out what's going to be more beneficial. As we've seen more going after Ronaldo Boersma, Ronaldo trying to get past Sanjin Pillay. But guys have been really... Oh, Ronaldo Boersma outbraking himself with a bit of a love tap to the back of Sanjin Pillay, going around the outside, and yeah, unfortunately just outbraking himself there. Morgan McCall saying, well, thank you very much, I'll just get past. It's no issue at all. Sanjay Pillay still needing to pit, so maybe this is an opportunity for him to dive into the pit to get it done and dusted. If he's going to do so, no, he's going to continue on the chase. But yeah, going back onto it, guys have really been stepping up their game. The teams have been really pushing to step up their games. New gear, new tech coming in. It's brilliant to see. I'm so happy to see that the esports game in South Africa, especially the sim racing side, has just been getting better and better and better. And the level has been raised. The bar has been raised for all the teams out there of trying to figure out how they can get to the top. And I do feel that in sim racing at the moment, we're starting to get a little bit closer to more of the FPS, the more MMOs, the Dotas, the League of Legends, where guys are making it full-time careers. They're really trying to claw that way up.
Absolutely. We've got the big teams in here where the guys that you mentioned doing the latest tech and, you know, trying to be at the forefront of sim racing, Stephen. But the one thing I just want to mention as well, you mentioned the aspiring sim racers. Guys, you don't actually need all the latest tech. We've got guys racing in this pro division with, I won't call them steering wheels, but not the same steering wheels that some of the other guys are using, but yet they are running the same kind of pace. So don't be deterred by that.
Well, I just want to point out, Christian Lepoy, second in the championship.
Yeah,
he's running.
He's actually referring to him.
He's one of the drivers that's actually running on a play seat, an old PlayStation play seat, where it's still got the bar in the middle between your legs, and he's running a G920. I think it's the one that's got
G923.
Yeah, it's got True Force in it. It's the one that's got rumble motors in the steering, because that makes a big difference. Sarcasm of note there. I don't know why. It's lots of fun for Gran Turismo, but personally, I don't see the best into it. But there's guys that are running that. There's guys running Thrustmaster T300s, T150s, T50s, you know, not running the most amazing tech like your Mazda R5s, your R9s, your R21s, your Thoraxes, your Fanatics. The guys have actually, you know, taken the fight, and it's all coming down to practice, consistency, patience, and just the motivation to get better at this point.
Absolutely. And interesting story. The quickest I've ever been on ACC was actually not in my current gear. It was actually when I was on a Logitech G29.
Yes. But in turn, everyone says having no load cell pedal is actually easier than having a load cell pedal. I have to contradict that one. because
Depends on what you're racing.
when you have a Hall effect sensor, like the generic pedals that you have, and I see Luke actually saying he's got the same. Yeah. But running on something that's got a Hall effect, you've actually got to build up the memory of what angle your foot is. Instead of having muscle memory of where everything is, you've actually got to have the memory of, okay, my foot's at a certain angle and that is how fast I'm going. You have to think a lot harder than building up that muscle memory where the resistance is giving you that bit of a battle. So even though the guys have got the cheaper gear, which you could go pick up a steering for a brand new G29 for about 4,000 Rand. But the guys say that, and it's just a mind-boggling amount. But second-hand prices, you do get them for a lot cheaper. But that takes a lot of practice, a lot of time, a lot of effort to learn of how far you're braking. I do think when you make that transition over to load cells, you do gain a bit of time. But at the start, you're going to actually be slower.
Yes, that's actually what I wanted to say. When I moved over from, at that stage, I was using a Thrustmaster T300, and I kept the base and the steering wheel, and I moved over to load cell pedals. And at the start, I was actually struggling. I was a lot slower because it's a whole different braking game all of a sudden that you've got now. And you need to get used to that. But I'm going to say it out straight. I know we're talking about GT3 racing tonight, where the load cells tend to come into their own, is where you're racing those cars that does not have ABS.
Yeah, that's definitely it. A lot of people have, if we go back a little bit, I actually found out the 12 Hours of Bathurst, one of the McLarens that were doing very, very well. In ACC, the guys were actually racing without, they turned ABS off. They turned it off completely. And the reason is because they wanted to feel the car's rotation to a point. They wanted to feel the braking limit to a point and be able to go and do cadence braking to try and help alleviate the ABS braking, because they felt the ABS was becoming too intrusive.
Too intrusive, okay.
So, generally we talk about traction control. Now, to explain traction control to people out there, traction control, they've got two forms of traction control in these cars. They've got a gain and a slip. A gain is to stop the forward and back motion. So when you're doing burnouts, and that's, when you hard onto the brakes, you're moving forward and you're moving backwards. That traction control comes into play. The secondary traction control, which is TC2, is actually for slip. That is for your angles of moving left and right to try and keep the car into check. Finding the balancing act between the two is very difficult, and having your traction control set too high suddenly stops the car from having the rotation that's needed to move your way through the field.
Yeah, I just see Morgan McCall's really pushing hard. He's trying to get onto the rear bumper of Boersma, putting a wheel in the dirt there. So he's not hanging back. He's taking the fight to the guys ahead of them.
Now, Ronaldo Boersma in that fight, but Dean Cabasa and SESA is also slugging it out. This is for 9th and 10th position.
So it's good to see at this stage, Stephen, there's still battles going up and down the field. We've got the top three battling it out, and we've got 9th and 10th, we've got 11th and 12th, we've got 14th and 15th. So it's good to see those battles up and down the field, and we're basically halfway through the race already. And the top 10 will need to do both their pit stops, so they are pushing it deep into the race. I know we spoke about it last night as well. The guys pushing in deep into the race because it does open up your pit stop strategy should something go wrong later in the race. I mean, the guys like Alan Patterson and Dean Miller completed all their pit stops. If something goes wrong now, as we see Cody Sherritt in the pits.
So Cody's opted to dive in the pits. That's going to allow Giovanni to get past and take the fight. But that's opened it up for Daniel Rowe and Ryan Ottsons at this point. Christian Deploy managing to get past, so he's trying to open up. But it's going to be interesting. Cody Sherritt needs to come ahead or get in and out of pits, as we also see. I think that is Grant Sebastian. That's actually called pits. Yes, it is. He needs to get ahead of Ronaldo Boersma, who's trying to make his way through. Ronaldo has completed one of his pit stops. So Cody Sherritt getting in and out, clean. He is back into 6th place. 1 pit stop done. Was stopped in the box for 5.4 seconds. So that is just fuel.
Splash and dash, yeah.
That is a splash and dash, as expected. Ronaldo Borsma coming into the pits. Now, do you think, along with Sanjay Pillay, he's also pulling into the pits. Do you think going too deep into the race is eliminating going and putting tyres onto the car? Might have started on a 100% fresh set of tyres, but after an hour and 20 minutes around Zolder, which is a higher degradation circuit due to the elevation changes, due to the camber, it does wear down the tyres quite a bit, and also maintaining the heat in the tyres, not to go too hot, not to go too cold. Do you think running a single set of tyres is going to be more beneficial, or do you think that maybe swapping out a set of tyres towards the end of the race, having that little bit of wiggle room to move up 0.5 of a second?
Oh, it's a difficult one, Stephen.
Putting you on the spot.
You're putting me on the spot, and I'm going to say, I truly believe a person that is the caliber of Cody Sherritt would have done the long run testing to see what the tires do. So it's not going to be just a guess on his part. It's going to be an educated, call it guess strategy decision. If you leave it for too late, the advantage you're going to get from fitting a new set of tires is going to be very limited. I mean, the laps are starting to run out. We're halfway through, unless he's going to do a double pit stop in the next couple of laps to fit a new set of tires so that both his pit stops are out the way. That is a possibility that remains to be seen, but if you're going to pit with 20 minutes to go and put on a fresh set of tires, I mean, you only realistically got 10 to 13 laps left of the race to utilize those new tires, so the amount of time you're going to gain from it is going to be limited.
It's going to be a very, very interesting one indeed. I think the guys are going to have to try and figure out what's going to be more beneficial for them. Morgan McCall pulling into the pits. He's getting his second pit stop out the way. He needs to get ahead of Ronaldo Borsma to make that work for him as Ronaldo is chasing down Tini and Kube. Cameron de Bastos is battling out with Sanjay Pillay just ahead of him. Alan Patterson going and finishing all these pit stops. Darren Miller with all these pit stops down. Grant Sebastian. Grant Sebastian's actually been in the pits for quite some time. So it looks like he is getting some proper work done on that car. But I wonder when is these pit stops going to come in? Everyone's starting to have a bit of a mixed strategy at this point. A couple of guys going and saying putting for tires is going to be more beneficial. Others saying that it's not going to be beneficial. There's a lot of mixed strategies that are coming into play here. And Zolder has always been one of those tracks that it's either going to work or it's not. You're either going to have a good race or you're going to have a race that you want to forget about. Especially for round number 7, the last thing you want to do is lose points in this race. You want to ensure to maximize your points. Dean Cabasa coming into the pit, so he's getting himself sorted. But you want to ensure that you've gained enough points in the race to close out the championship. No one wants to sit with 0 points or 1 point. They want to sit with 10, 15, 20, 30, and so on. Henry Mayer, though, going out once again. This is the second time we've seen Henry Mayer go out wandering, and now he's got a bit of a problem as he has got one of the PWSR cars chasing him down, and that was Darren Miller that actually had to slow up. But Henry Mayer, for a second time, I think this car ran out wide and has been taking a bit of strain. So over the curb, runs out wide, there's the grass.
And on the grass.
Just the slightest of touches can break traction.
Oh, that section through there, it is absolutely horrible. As you said, the slightest of touches, and you're basically done for.
You become a passenger in your own car. And we're starting to see more and more of these tighter circuits coming into play. Valencia, I think, is very reminiscent of Zandvoort. So the guys are going to have to think of, okay, what do we need to do to improve ourselves going into round number 8, especially for closing rounds of the championship. How can we end off on a very high note? And I know a lot of the teams have been sitting going, okay, what can we do to improve? What do we need to go forward? And I don't think anyone's sitting about next season, what's happening next week. They're thinking about now at the moment of
the
what
here and
needs to
now.
be done.
I mean, it's the focus is purely now on this race and what needs to be done in this race to move up in the championship, and then we're going to deal with the last round and see where we are. But this race is far from being over. 37 minutes still to go. At this stage, we're looking at Justin Lotus. He's got Cody Sherritt just in front of him that has completed one pit. Well, I'm saying just in front of him, about 11 seconds off. 11 seconds, it's just in front of him. You can just see him as you get out of the last corner.
Yeah, but Justin
Cody
Lotus has got Daniel de Villiers all over him, so I think he's not looking ahead. I think he's looking in the mirrors at this point.
Well, some guys just look ahead and not behind. I mean, focus on what's ahead. Don't look back, Stephen. It's dark back there. Look ahead. Be positive.
Whatever's close in the mirror, forget about it. The thing ahead of you comes up a lot quicker.
Whatever's close in the mirror is just blocking the view. So just focus on what's happening.
It's used to put makeup on. All right. Well, Daniel Rowe out in first place. Ryan Ottens in second place. Giovanni trying to close down the distance. He's 3.7 seconds. He's getting chased down by Christian Deploy, Henry Mayer in 5th, 6th, Cody Sherritt, Justin Lotus in 7th, Daniel de Villiers in 8th, 9th, SES Hayes, Nicholas Manuel in 10th. He's been doing really, really well, keeping consistent. He is second of everyone that's done his pit stops. Maeth Musa also closing down the distance, he's 4.7 seconds behind Nicholas Manuel. Bago Krobler in 12th, 13th, Teddy and Kube, Morgan McCall, Dean Kabasa, Ramona Yonka, Andre Saradio, Sanjan Pillay, Cameron de Bastos right onto the back of Sanjan Pillay. So Cameron is really trying to spice things up with Sanjan Pillay just ahead of him. Ronaldo Boisma in 20th, 21st, Alan Patterson, 22nd, Darren Miller, Grant Sebastian 23rd. He's just retired the car. But we have had a couple of people out. We've had 3 cars, unfortunately, not able to make it to the end of the race and see. So this is going to be a very, very interesting race. And the wear and tear is starting to show on these drivers with 35 minutes to go of the race. It's all or nothing at this point of what's going to be beneficial, what's going to be the way to move forward, and can you keep up some very consistent lap times considering of what's going into the race and what's on the line right to the end. I mean, everyone is fighting for a piece of the pie of that 10,000 Rand prize pool, so there's no letting off the gas at this point. So as we make our way through, the guys really trying to stomp their way around. But Yanaman, so far at the moment, our leaders have not pitted. Henry Mayer actually giving the position to Cody Sherritt. We actually saw him slow up there. I think that's a little bit of the team coming into play and saying, listen, know your fight at this point. Henry, your championship is not fighting with Cody Sherritt. Your championship is a little bit further down, and just try and reshuffle the cars accordingly. And this is something we're seeing a whole lot of teams actually do. Hybrid Academy, Genesis, the Spinellas esports, they're also doing the same thing, just trying to shuffle themselves around, ensure that they can get in the most advantageous positions.
I mean, it's putting your driver that's got a best chance to win the championship in the best possible position. It's something we see in all sorts or all forms of motorsport, even up to Formula One. It's nothing strange, and as you rightfully said, they're kind of not in the same championship fight, so. And it's beneficial towards the team. It's a win-win situation, so why not do it? But you were talking about Daniel Rowe and Ryan Ottens. I'm starting to have the suspicion they heavily fueled those cars. They're going to go in deep and maybe do their pit stop as late as possible. They're obviously confident that the cars can do it. There's only 33 minutes to go. I might be proven wrong yet. And see one of them diving into the pits fairly soon, but it's kind of the same strategy that Daniel Rowe followed last night.
I just want to also point out something very interesting, as Ronaldo Boisma with the Porsche has been rather quick. He's been hanging on to the back of Sanjin Pillay and Cameron de Bastos. Well, Cameron de Bastos actually spinning, so it wasn't Cameron de Bastos, it was one of the other Porsches. Yeah, I think it was a little bit further up the field, I do apologise. But he was hanging around the fight and then opted to get past. I think that was actually Daniel de Villiers going after Justin Lotus, and he's allowed Ronaldo Bursmo, who is running quicker times, who is a back marker, to try and move his way through. So Justin Lotus at the moment has got a race on, even though it's someone that is
it's a lap
down.
Yeah, I mean,
running pace.
Yeah, because at this stage, you know, Ronaldo Bursma wants to get past Justin Lotus because he's got Cameron de Bastos just up the road that he wants to catch. So, strictly speaking, you say he's got a lot of pace, but that Ferrari was kind of holding him up. He wanted to get past it to take the fight to Cameron.
But this is an interesting part. Daniel de Villiers did a very tactical move. He allowed the guy to get round him and essentially use him like a wrecking ball to go and interfere.
Use him like a battering ram to close that gap up to Justin Lotus.
So Justin Lotus going and losing out that fight, and Daniel de Villiers, but another person that has also capitalised on it is Ezzy Estes in 9th place. He got right onto the back of it, seeing that the two of them were getting held up. He was able to close down the distance. So this is turning into a rather interesting fight, but it does show that there is some pace through the field. The guys are really starting to push the limits of what they can do and not wanting to hang around. Now, is that going to interfere with the race a little bit further on? I think it's something we need to keep an eye on, because it does look like essentially the back markers, the cars that are a lap down, trying to catch up to one another, are causing these concertina effects that are coming into play with other drivers a little bit further up the road. But in the same time, you can't take away, they're also in a race. So a lot of tactical thinking is coming into play here, and I've really got to take my hat off to the drivers trying to think of what's going to be more beneficial in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, especially, you know, one or two guys had a bit of issues, went off tracks and so forth. They might be running a little bit out of position. As you see, Daniel de Villiers, he's having a look there. Well, had a look on the inside. That's now going to become the outside. So that inside gap is going to disappear, and you know, the gap just gets closed in his face. But I want to say, Stephen, there's a couple of guys running a little bit out of position. I mean, we've got Sanjay Pillay. He's really struggling in this race. He's down in 20th position. So the point I'm trying to make is there might be a couple of cars that essentially have been lapped. Christian Deploy in the pits there, but they are running a quicker pace.
No, it's definitely, now there's a bit of a tactical move going on here. Christian Deploy pitting 29 minutes and 33 left of the race. Daniel de Villiers looking up the inside. Justin Lotus backs out of it, deciding that turn one is going to be too tricky. He's going to try and come back as a cutback. Didn't quite work out. But Christian Deploy dropping all the way down into 9th position is going to have to battle it past SSA's Daniel de Villiers and Justin Lotus. All of them have not pitted as yet. The one that has pitted and has got first out of the way is Cody Sherritt, running in 4th place at the moment. He's chasing down Giovanni ahead of him to try and close the distance. So we're starting to see the guys trying to figure out where they can go, but I'm wondering, running it too late into the race, is this going to be more beneficial, or are you going to run into these little concertina battles that, as we saw last night with Jason Abschmeyer, he had a fantastic run, he got some tremendous pace, but unfortunately getting caught behind fights and squabbles that the guys
costs him a lot of time.
Yeah, it was costing him 2 to 3 seconds a lap, and that was, I mean, that's something that Christian Deploy is going to feel like at this point, because he's got a 3-way fight just ahead of him, and you can be sure they're not going to give it up, because Christian Deploy is, yes, he has pitted, but he is racing for position.
Yeah, it is racing for position, even though he's done one pit stop. And this is now essentially turning out to be a 4-car battle between Lotus de Villiers, Esterhazy, and Christian Deploy. 3 of these cars still need to do their 2 pit stop. Christian Deploy has done 1 pit stop I don't think he's going to do his pace any favors, Stephen, coming up to this battle, because he's literally going to have to fight his way past. He's not going to be, as we see De Villiers looking up the inside there, not close enough to make it stick. So Lotus closing the gap, and De Villiers will have to follow him through, and closely followed there by SES Razor, really close, and then Christian Deploy. Looking down the inside, not close enough, Christian, at this stage. You'll have to wait for another gap, and then I think it might be a bit, I don't want to say demoralizing for Christian, Stephen, but he's looking at 3 cars in front of him. That's going to cost him time potentially on track.
Yeah, and this is the thing, frustration will start to build up, and for the other drivers, they are just focusing on the race at the moment. But taking a look over to the grandstands, over at the Mettlestate, they've got the Twitch grandstand, they're going absolutely mad out there, having a party of note, and it's good to see it. It's good to see that the Mettlestate grandstand that's got all the Twitch side really having a bit of fun. They're really enjoying all the action. Over at the RaceFace grandstand, you can see the guys being a little bit more methodical, more thinking, trying to figure out what's going to be better, and trying to also give it in, because a lot of the guys there are currently managers or teammates of cars out there. See, Giovanni has now pulled into the pits. He's going to drop behind this little pack and also drop behind his teammate. But that has allowed Henry Mayer to move up. Cody Sherritt has moved himself up into 3rd place. So Cody Sherritt back into the podium positions. And Christian Poit pulling into the pits. So
he's doing the double pit stop. Change of strategy maybe?
I've got a funny feeling. Luke Addison was in the air there. He looked at it and he said, realistically, you're not going to get clean air here. Get in the pits, get your second one out the way, and get back in the fight. Try and get back that rhythm. Let the guys go, get some clear air, and try and fight it out a little bit later. So, I mean, this is where it's getting very, very interesting to see the guys push themselves that little bit more, trying to get that little bit of a strategy.
Yeah, there was another thing I was just keeping an eye on here on the side screen. While Christian Deploy was sitting behind this little battle, Bago Grobler was making up some serious time on it, and I think that might just also have been in the, they might have been just keeping an eye on that, on Bago closing this gap down as well.
It's turning, and this is our closest battle on the circuit at the moment, but 1st place is Daniel Rowe, Ryan Otten's in 2nd, 3rd place is Cody Sherritt, Henry Mayer, Giovanni Porzio, Justin Lotus, Daniel De Villiers, SESAs, Bago Grobler, and Christian Deploy are our top 10 at the moment. Morgan McCall down in 11th place, followed by Dean Cavassa, Nicholas Manuel, Mahayath Musa, Ramona Yonka, Andre Seradio, Cameron De Bastos, Ronaldo Boersma, Tenny Nkube, Sanjan Pillay, Alan Patterson, Darren Miller, Ron Sebastian in 23rd. He has retired the car, but is just waiting in the lane, trying to maximize. SESA is pulling into the pit, so he's going to let these two go and battle it out. He's opted that there's time being lost. He's going to get it all done, but some proper fighting action between Justin Lotus and De Villiers at the moment. They are keeping a really good pace between one another and being one of the closest battles out there. 2nd is Cameron De Bastos with Ronaldo Boersma. They chasing each other down, but it's a little bit more open, about a second and a half. Andre Seradio, Ramona Yonka, they're about 1.8 to 2 seconds. So the field has opened up quite a bit, and it's good to see that the guys are really trying to push themselves a little bit further. Christian Deploy, he's managing to get past SES Days, and I just want to show a little bit of SE coming out of the pits, because this does show something interesting. Because
the challenges of the pit exit.
This is it. It's the challenges of the pit exit, because as Christian Deploy is trying to get a little bit more drive, you see SE starting to move, the Ferrari starting to get a little bit out of pit lane, and Christian Deploy is going to catch him right into the apex of turn 1. Here we go, coming across the nose and having to just try and get himself all sorted out. So, I mean, these are little factors that will come into play as time goes on. Andre Seradio, though, has caught up to Ramona Yonka, tries to look for the outside line. Ramona going on the defensive. Andre Seradio tries to go for a cutback and has to back out of it. And you can see keeping nice and tight right up against the back of the gearbox of that Ferrari. really ensuring that 296 Ferrari is not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's some pretty close racing to follow him that closely behind through that section there, really making his intent clear as we go in car. That's trying to look on the outside, then cutting back on the inside. It's not really a passing place, but what he's doing, Steven, he's just putting that pressure on. He's just keeping Jonker under that pressure, and we spoke about the mirror watching previously, but looking around the outside now again. Is he going to try to cut back to the inside, cutbacks to the inside, and can he make a stick? But this puts him now on the outside for the next left-hander, so Romano Jonker's got the inside line here. Serradio, a little bit of contact,
yeah,
and that's going to kill his drive.
Bit of understeer, a bit of a snap oversteer, and Andre Serradio. But it does look like he managed to get back onto the pace, and Romano Jonker now trying to go on the defense. Andre Serradio trying to keep it all together. And also take a look behind. You have got Cameron de Bastos and Ronaldo Buesma starting to close it down on the back of Romano Jonker. So
very quickly joining this battle.
Yeah, we're turning into another full train battle, and this is what's getting interesting, and that's why the crowds are getting so excited onto the grandstands at both Mettlestate, where they've got the whole Twitch side, but you've also got, as we see Cameron sending it up on Romano Jonker.
Double overtake.
And,
double overtake there.
Yeah, Ronaldo Buesma saying thank you very much. I'm going to go for this one as well. Let's actually go to the helmet cam of that, because it just worked all in his favor as he closed down. You can hear him feathering the throttle through the final corner. He's not entirely flat. Now heading into
this stage, he's miles behind.
He is monstrously behind. He sees Cameron go up, takes a dive, understeers, sees the opportunity, and carpe diem right there. Thank you very much. Oh, captain, my captain, I will take that position with absolute glee and open arms.
And now it puts him right as we move over to Meyer.
That's Bego Krobler closing down on Justin Lotus. Now, you did mention that Bego was closing down and managed to move up around about 3 seconds a lap. He managed to get past Justin Lotus. Justin not putting too much of a fight. But it's very interesting to see the guys starting to move themselves around, trying to get themselves a little bit more organized. But I want to bring out, Giovanni is in 4th place. He's done a pit stop. Cody Sherritt in 3rd place has done a pit stop. Bego Krobler is in 6th place. He has done a pit stop. Daniel Rowe, 1st place, no pit stop. Ryan Ottens, no pit stop. Daniel De Villiers, no pit stop. Justin Lotus, no pit stop. And then you've got Romano Jonker a little bit further down. And just taking a look at Romano Jonker, he's actually got 1 stop to do so. He's in a little bit of a hard situation, as everyone ahead of him has done their pit stops. They've completed it all. Christian Deploy is actually the first that has completed all their mandatory pit stops, and is now
Bego
trying to move himself.
Now.
So Bego coming into the pits. It's going to release Justin Lotus. But another battle that's starting to form. SES Days, Morgan McCall are going at one another, and you can see SD trying to hold down that inside line. He's not able to do so. Aims for the pits and actually just opens it up.
Letting him by, maybe.
Possibly just realizing that Morgan has got the pace, and instead of fighting it out and hurting his tyres further, maybe, just maybe, he's going to keep him to the towing and close down.
It's also the case Morgan has completed all his pit stop, but AC still needs to do one more pit stop as Daniel Rowe is in the pits. So if effectively you're not really, challenging for position because you're on a different strategy, so different type of race.
Cody Sherritt now looking to try and get past. I think he will clear Daniel Rowe, so Cody Sherritt will be jumping himself into 2nd place. Giovanni
He's Daniel fitting tires, maybe.
Look, Daniel Rowe was only stopped in the box for 11.4, so that is just fuel.
No tires. Fuel.
I think the tire option has been taken away. Looking 18 minutes.
It's gone.
18 minutes into the race. If you're putting on a fresh set of boots on now, I think you've run it out. Alan Patterson allowing the guys to go by as Ryan Ottens gets past him. I think putting on a fresh set of boots right now would be more detrimental to your race than a positive outlier. But Cody Sherritt is in a bit of a prime position with Ryan Ottens ahead of him. Ryan Ottens is 26.6 seconds ahead of him, but Ryan Ottens needs to pull in the pit. We're looking at Daniel Rowe's time. Now, Daniel Rowe from entrance to exit was 21.7 seconds, stopped in the box for 11.4 seconds. That puts him up to about 30 seconds, just over 30 seconds, but stop time. Cody Sherritt is within that 30 seconds, so he can choose whether to pit and then get past, and here comes Ryan Ottens. So Ryan Ottens pulled into the pits. Now, is Cody Sherritt going to react to this, box, and then get back out there, completing his mandatory pit stops and filing in behind him? Or is he going to try and get past and open up the distance?
It's gonna be close either way. He decides to pit.
He's reacting. He's reacting to this.
What's Daniel Rowe gonna do now?
So Daniel Rowe is going to carry on by, and essentially what Cody Sherritt has done has forced an undercut on the pit stop, which will change things out, because now the pressure goes on to Daniel Rowe, Ryan Ottens, and Giovanni to accelerate, to try and open up the distance and try and get that 30-second spacing that is crucially needed to maintain their positions. And for Cody Sherritt, he's out in 4th place. Daniel De Villiers, though, has not boxed at all. He still needs to do his pit stop. He's trying to run the full length.
Cody Sherritt at this stage is about 30 seconds behind Daniel Rowe. This is going to be a close one, Stephen. Ryan Ottens 2.5 seconds behind Giovanni Porzio, 14.6 seconds behind Ryan Ottens. Daniel Villiers 12.5 seconds behind Giovanni Porzio. That's put, and Cody Sherritt roughly about a second behind Daniel Villiers. That puts him about 30 seconds behind Daniel Rowe. This is going to be very close on the last pit stop.
And I think it's now coming down to banking on not getting held up too much in traffic, and maintaining a bit of a drive, and also what the tires are starting to look like for these drivers, because looking at the guys, they haven't put tires on except for Morgan McCall. Morgan McCall actually put tires on. He was stopped in the box for 31.9 seconds, so he's got a fresh set of boots out on there and is on the hot charge. But looking at the facts here, Daniel De Villiers he's in a bit of a race against others, but if Cody Sherritt loses too much time, he's going to fall into the clutches of the like of Christian Deploy, who is feeling the pressure from Morgan McCall right behind him. So Cody Sherritt is in a little bit of a difficult situation if he gets caught up in the fight.
Morgan going to try and go around the outside, but I don't think that's going to work out too well, because Christian's got the inside line for this tight left-hander. I think Morgan will maybe have to wait until the pit's straight until he can pull off that move. But I think, Stephen, if Cody can't get past as soon as possible past De Villiers, which he has done, it could have cost him dearly, but it does look like he made his way past and can carry on. But how much did it cost him?
Well, Cody Sherritt is 12.9 seconds behind Giovanni.
Still 30 seconds, yeah.
Still within 30 seconds, but the advantage has been taken away severely from him, and what he was hoping for, the undercut, started running away from him, and he's having to try and play a little bit of catch up. This is Morgan McCall. He's putting as much pressure onto the back of Christian Deploy. Christian Deploy, who is sitting second in the championship, where Morgan McCall isn't fighting for the podium at the moment, but Morgan McCall has, I would say, he's the joker in the deck. You've got your deck of cards. He's the joker. He is the Yu-Gi-Oh version of a trap card to get pulled out, where it can either work in your favor or not work in your favor. He's suddenly, for anyone that plays League of Legends, he's the guy that comes from jungle and decides to go and attack you in left lane. He will go and really hurt your day very, very quickly. And for Christian Deploy, he wants to try and maximize points to hold on to second place. This can cost him if he drops into 8th.
Yeah.
So A man that has nothing to lose is Morgan McCall. A man that has everything to lose is Christian Deploy in this little battle. But this is where things are starting to evolve, and even a little bit further down, you've got Andre Serradio and Ronaldo Boersma. And I want to point out here, Ronaldo Boersma has been into the pits 3 times compared to Andre Serradio that has done 2 pit stops. So Ronaldo Boersma has closed down the distance and has really gotten onto the back of Andre Serradio, which is no easy feat considering he handicapped himself roughly about 30 seconds, 90 seconds of this race. He was handicapped in the fight.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just quickly having a look here at the last lap times. Daniel Rowe doing a 136.412, Ryan Otten's 136.115. Then Cody Sherritt in 4th place, 136.205. So Stephen running very similar lap times at this stage. So out in front, there's not much difference.
Well, Giovanni running a 37.1, but he was trying to get past one of the cars by the look of it. But, I mean, we're in for a very, very exciting finish. And we saw last night with the GT3 sprint race, which was a 55 minutes, where the guys actually got into a massive concertina battle at Zandvoort. And this is something that the track tends to do quite a bit of, where the cars tend to spread out in the middle of the race. And then as time's gone on, tires wear out, fuel wears out, drivers get worn out, there becomes this little battle that starts to form as concertinas affect, as Christian Deploy going and turning it and giving Morgan McCall not much room, and Morgan having to jump over the curves. And I mean, this is how hard they're pushing. If we go into the helmet cam, you can see Morgan McCall was going into a very difficult part of the course to go for a pass. He was going on the inside line where it wasn't going to be the easiest. He outbrakes him side by side, tries to make his way through, tightens up, just gets a snap oversteer. And I think that's because the rear wheels just lifted enough, didn't have that traction that it needed, and it lost him a bit of time, but still able to get 0.2 of a second onto the back of that BMW, and I'm sure getting very, very sick and tired of seeing the rear tail lights. And Christian Deploy is thinking, what do I need to do to get rid of this Ferrari?
Yeah, I mean, this is hurting Christian's lap times tremendously. I mean, last lap time 137.6, so it's not really looking good for him at this stage. We're having Morgan McCall so closely behind. He really needs to mirror watch to see what Morgan McCall is doing, and at the same time McCall's going to have a look on the inside, but this is going to put him on the outside again for the next corner. Christian Deploy getting the drive, getting that inside line, but this is not doing his lap times any favors at this stage.
Yeah, Morgan McCall showing what he can do and really sticking the fight. And this is exciting to see the guys. Christian Deploy going to the middle of the circuit, going for a very defensive line. Morgan McCall going for an aggressive line and getting past.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
It stick both drivers side by side. That is not an easy feat to do. Yes, there was a bit of rubbing between the two. That is no question there. They were sharing paint. But honestly, my heavens, well done to both drivers to keep that up. That's some serious racing out there. And to see Christian, he's trying to close down. But Andre Serradio, Ronaldo Boersma, same thing. They're getting into this fight. They 0.4 of a second. This is one of the closest battles currently out there. Ronaldo Boersma tries to look for the inside line. Andre Serradio gets a bit squeamish as he gets back onto the power. You can see Ronaldo Boersma flashing his light saying, listen, buddy, I see that you're starting to take a bit of wear and tear there. That Mercedes is not looking as settled as it used to be, and is going to close it down. Mahath Musa a little bit further up. He's got Nicholas Manuel. Nicholas Manuel's trying to close down on Dean Kabasa and Bego Krobler, who has pretty much gone away from them. But Alan Patterson seeing Dean Kabasa, Nicholas Manuel, Mahath Musa, who are in a bit of a train, closing down on him as well. So we're starting to see those small concertina effects, but the pit stop strategy comes into play. Daniel Rowe still going on. We've got 7 minutes and 35 seconds left of the pit stop window. We've got Ryan Ottens needing to pit as well. Giovanni Porzio in 3rd place, still needing to do his pit stop. Cody Sherritt has done his pit stop. Daniel De Villiers has opted to finally do his pit stop. The Hitman deciding to actually put a bit of ammo back into his
Magazine.
his tool to unalive someone if we're following by terms and conditions. Henry Mayer is also pulled into the pit, so you're starting to see these guys pushing themselves a little bit more, trying to figure out what's going to work. Alan Patterson, though, has got Nicholas Manuel trying to dive up the inside, Mahith Musa diving up the inside, so he moves out the way to just get this battle past him and does not want to get involved in the fight. Mahith Musa was hoping that there would be a little bit of a fight. Does look like Dean Cabasa pulling into the pit, so he's getting a pit stop done and dusted. His final one, that's going to allow Nicholas Manuel, Mahith Musa, who have done. And it does look like Henry Mayer has come out of the pits, but Henry Mayer has dropped down to 12th position. And Dean Cabasa is currently in the pits. That's 13th. Andre Serradio in 14th has got Ronaldo Bursma trying to chase him down. So a couple of the guys are really going that later pit stop, and we're not seeing it coming to fruition. That's really of benefits at this point. Daniel Rowe still leading it out, though, needs to pit. Ryan Ottens needs to pit. Giovanni still needs to pit. Cody Sherritt is 10.7 seconds behind Giovanni. Giovanni 17.5 seconds behind Ryan Ottens. So that's already 27.5 seconds, 28 seconds behind. So he's still within that pit window to go after Ryan Ottens and Daniel Rowe. And you can be sure that the two are trying to push as hard as they can, knowing the threat that's there. We're running out of time.
Cody Sherritt's last lap time actually a little bit quicker than Daniel Rowe and Ryan Ottens. He lapped about 0.3 of a second quicker than Daniel Rowe, but he's still in that 30-second bracket, Stephen. Not really able to make inroads at this stage. Pit window is starting to run out. 5 minutes, 20 seconds left. Daniel Rowe and Ryan Ottens will have to make that pit stop fairly soon at this stage. They're running information out in front as we have a look at Nicholas Manuel. He's got Musa behind him for company. 2 BMWs duking it out. So we are again seeing similar things than last night, Stephen. Latter stages of the race, things can heat up drastically still in the last 5 minutes and 50 seconds.
Well, I mean, this is round number 7 of an 8-round championship, and next round next week is going to be Valencia, which will be the final round. It will be the creme de la cour. That is it for the Mettlestate Grid Championship, brought to you by RaceFace and Mettlestate Season 3, which is just absolutely mind-boggling to see that for 3 seasons we've had this title sponsor really getting behind it. And I think the drivers have noticed, and the elevation has come to not only in our pro tier, but our pro-am, our gold, our silver. If we go out to the Discord over at RaceFace.Pro, the guys have been rather excited. They've been just grabbing the idea of what's next, where is it to go from here, because the sky's the limit. We've broken through the glass roof. That's stereotypical of, well, it's only going to last a season and then disappear. It's been proven that it's not going to disappear, that it is sticking around. It's becoming that staple in South African esports, and we're having the best of the best coming out and fighting it here in the Grid Championship. And I look forward to seeing more and more esport teams that are involved, such as first-person shooters, MMOs, your tabletops, everything. Your esport guys trying to get involved and building up race teams to come and take it on, and seeing the creme de la cour of sim racing get their way all the way to the top. And mark my words, we will be seeing these names plus new names landing up on TV. You're going to be watching it just like you see the F1, the Indy 500, and WEC.
Hopefully we'll be there as well. If not commentating, we'll be watching.
I don't think I'll be on the same pace as our pro tier out there. Maybe I can go and race with the am tier and see where I am. But yeah, that's going to be a bit of a closer. Giovanni pulling into the pits. Cody Sherritt has now taken 3rd place. He's 27.9 seconds behind Ryan Ottens. Ryan Ottens is 1.6 seconds behind Daniel Rowe.
Now, Daniel Rowe needs to pit this lap, Stephen. There's only 2 minutes, 20 seconds left in this pit stop window. So he needs to put at the end of this lap. Otherwise, he's not going to make that window. So is Ryan Otten. So we're most probably going to see a formation pitting. Both cars in. Then double stack them. Luckily, they're in different pit boxes. So it's not an issue. And then we will have to see, has Daniel Rowe done enough to get out in front of Cody Sherritt? I think this will be 1 liter at the most going into that car. Just what is needed to register as a pit stop.
I actually want to just check out, because one of the comments I have brought up is Daniel Rowe's the only real life race driver that's in the Grid Championship. I'd like to actually just point out, no, he's not the only real life race driver that is actually racing in the Grid Championship. We've got a whole bunch of real life racing drivers utilizing the sim as a bit of training, and also guys saying that it is as competitive as the likes of real racing into your nationals. There is talks with Motorsport South Africa, which is to try.
Ryan going out. Where's Cody?
Daniel Rowe coming out. Cody coming into the corner, and he's
not enough.
He's going to get right onto the back of Daniel Rowe. This is going to be the fight.
2-minute sprint race.
This is a
2-minute sprint race.
Yes, but to answer the question, there's a lot of real-life drivers that are in here. Motorsport South Africa is backing sim racing and wanting to see it become a national fight. So,
and you know what?
You're going to possibly see these guys fighting it out for national honors further down the line in sim racing, which is just
absolutely
mind-blowing.
And some say even Stephen Koenig is a real-life racing driver.
Depends on your level of success.
Depends on if you have a gearbox or not.
Yeah, that's it. It's dependent on the level of success at this point. Let's leave it there. But the main race that we're keeping an eye on, Daniel Rowe, Cody Sherritt, and this is not only a race between drivers, as we hear pit window is now closed. Thank you, Jim. Jim works really hard. I've got to say, thank you to Jim. And Tim out there also. Some say Tim, the cameraman, who's filming all this. Tim, the cameraman, races on the Zandvoort Oval when it was made back in the 1960s. He still races it today. All we know is he's Tim the cameraman. Some say Tim the cameraman has been able to design a game that's harder than Dark Souls but plays like Super Mario. Just saying, putting it out there. There's a bit of facts out there.
That's deep. And on that point, we are on the final lap. Daniel Rowe, Cody Sherritt right behind him, 0.8 of a second behind. Steven, where is Cody Sherritt going to do it, if he's going to do it? There's only really one corner left unless he muscles his way around. At this stage, he's not close enough to Daniel Rowe to try and make a move. So at this stage, unless Daniel makes a mistake, Daniel Rowe looks like he's got it covered. I don't want to speak too soon. That's why I said unless there's a mistake. But Cody Sherritt not close enough as we look from the helicam, following him around, trying to close it up, but running out of time, running out of track to try and make the move.
Well, you've got a wooden table. Best be grabbing onto it at this point, because I wouldn't like to put a commentator's curse out on anyone at this point. But Daniel Rowe trying everything he can. Cody Sherritt trying to get as late as he can into the braking zone to close down the distance on that Mercedes. But it's Daniel Rowe trying to keep himself going forward. The Mercedes has been fighting its way through. It hasn't been the top contender for the championship. Has really just been sitting thereabouts. Now is making his way through and looks like he's going to be taking the flag. So Daniel Rowe taking first place for round number 7 of the Grid Championship, brought to you by Mettlestate and RaceFace. Second place going to Cody Sherritt after a fantastic race. And I've got to say, down to strategy was really, really close. Ryan Otten's taking third place. Giovanni Pausero, he's making his way around. He's got Andre Serradio just ahead of him. But Giovanni will be taking 4th place. Morgan McCall will be taking 5th. Christian Depoy will be taking 6th. 7th is Bago Krobler. Nicholas Manuel and Mahayath Musa, they also one of the closest battles, other than a little bit down for 13th and 14th. But this is 8th and 9th battling it out. 0.5 of a second. And Mahayath Musa is trying everything he can to close down on Nicholas Manuel just ahead of it. Nicholas Manuel losing a bit of drive, getting a bit squirrely, trying to figure out what he can do. But Nicholas Manuel will come across the line in 8th place. Mahayath Musa will be taking 9th. 10th will be Henry Mayer, followed by Daniel de Villiers, SESAs. Dean Kabasa has got the likes of Boersma all over the back of him. So Dean Kabasa has got his brother Mark Kabasa going and saying, come on, get going, Dean. As he runs over the curb, losing a bit of time there, has to try and battle it out. It does look like Ronaldo Boersma has got the drive, trying to go around the outside, look to do a little bit of a cutback. How much is left in that Ferrari? Ronaldo Boersma tucked into the toe, close it down, 0.2 of a second. Can he utilize the toe to close down as they get to the straight? And it does look like Dean Kabasa getting ahead of Ronaldo Boersma. Cameron de Bastos rounding out in 15th, Tini and Kube in 16th. 17th, Justin Lotus, followed by Andre Seradio, Sanjan Pillay, Alan Patterson, Ramona Yonka, Darren Miller, Grant Sebastian. We had a couple of people unable to make the end, such as Janus Kraling, Lo Randable, and Lionel Clue was our earliest one after that incident at the start. Wow. Okay. I'm going to go, let's take us to the commentary box and try and unpack what we just saw for the second last round of the championship, because this was a race and a half where strategy came into play. Guys are having to try and figure out what works for them, what's going to close down the gaps. I mean, phenomenal work amongst the teams. Very professional in terms of the guys trying to work out what they can do. There was some argy-bargy moments, but nothing that we've seen too out there. So I think for the teams that are out there, they can rather be, showing professionalism on the track for the second last round. They're not just driving into the side of one another, but they are focusing on just the long game and what they can do to maximize the points for round number 7. Give us your thoughts into this, Yanaman, because it's quite a lot to unpack right now.
Well, the speechless comes to mind. I mean, the last, I would say, 10 minutes of this race, I was constantly having my side screen on Daniel Rowe, trying to see if he pits or not, waiting for him to pit, because I knew it was very close. I knew that 30-second bracket was going to make it extremely close as he comes out of the pits, and we saw that. It turned out to be a 2-minute sprint race. But Steve, you mentioned the guys racing side by side through tight sections of this track as we see the start of the race. I mean, that section that they went through there is extremely narrow, and yet they made it stick. I mean, that shows you the class and the caliber of the drivers that we've got in this championship.
It's absolutely phenomenal. But we have got someone in the waiting room, and I'm bringing in Daniel the Hitman de Villiers. Daniel, fantastic run out there. You really put on a great performance. Not quite into the top 10 that you were hoping for. You did look like you had some moments that were rather exciting. Having the leaders coming past you was also quite a bit of a challenge. But also, take us through the start of the race. You got caught up where we saw one of the Lamborghinis getting twisted around and everyone having to figure out what they can do. And you also landed up having to hit the brakes and come to a stop, considering you got pincered between two cars that had an accident ahead of you.
Hi Steven, hi Yanaman. No comment, I think. I saw Loic and Johannes Greiling came together there at the hairpin. Loic did his pit stop and then he came out just ahead of Greiling, so I think he left space for Johannes and Johannes just went wide, so they collected each other there, and I was the rotten egg there on the outside, stuck.
Well, out of all things, you thought the outside would be the safest because everyone moves inside on the corner, but for this odd reason, they went uphill instead of downhill.
Yes, and I was behind Bager there, and Bager is the luckiest one ever that got out of that clean, and I was just behind him to chase. So yeah, no, it's unlucky, but it's racing, eh?
Well, as we take a look at SES, he's you two had a brilliant race, but take us through a bit of an idea of you're running a special livery in commemoration for Le This was the PWSR team. You were running the 787B colors. Take us through a little bit of info about that car, and just in terms of sporting those colors. What does it mean to you to run a Le Mans winning color set?
Well, Stephen, it's all Alan's idea, and to dedicate the Le Mans that was on last weekend. This was a dedication to them and the history that Le Mans brought us in racing, in the racing community and everything. I can feel the power of that rotary in me, and I know I have the speed. I just have to put it together. So yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, Daniel, thank you very much for joining us. Absolutely.
I just want to say congrats to Daniel Rowe. He drove an epic race yesterday and tonight. Congrats, man.
Well, speaking of that, Daniel Rowe in the box. Thank you, Daniel de Villiers. Really appreciate talking to you, the hitman, giving us a bit of thoughts out there. Daniel Rowe, welcome. That was a race to the line. It was literally one corner. How are you feeling? I'm sure you're feeling a bit worn out after that.
Yeah, it was a tough race. Last night was quite tough on the one set of tires, but we could see that it was doable, so we decided to go with it again. And I suspected a lot of others would try the same, and we managed to do it. So yeah, it was a cool race, and it's nice to see that all the teams this season especially are bringing their own identities. It's nice to see all the different identities, the teams in their team colors. It's nice to see that pride, and it's awesome to see the grid especially from the view before the race. I think it's growing RaceFace nicely.
Well, it's absolutely brilliant. And one of the things that was brought up by the commenters, they were actually talking, something I do want to ask you, because it's very few times we actually get to have an interview with you in the commentary box. I know chase you around with a microphone at the racetracks, and you want to get away from me as quick as possible. But from a real life driver's perspective, seeing the competition coming into this, how everyone has just stepped up the game, and Renton said that it is starting to become comparable to real life motorsport, where the guys are taking it just as seriously, the investments that are going in for all the teams to ensure that they can climb the ladder and become the best in South Africa. There's a serious growth into sim racing, just from a hobbyist point of view, into becoming a proper sport.
No, definitely. It's considered a sport. It's become huge. I share a massive passion for sim racing. I don't think I've missed a season of RaceFace at all since joining. And the guys in our team are very, very competitive and see it as a sport and not just a hobby. So it's the teams in RaceFace have really stepped up a lot. Before we were one or two teams with race liveries and having a proper identity. Now there's 6 or 7 teams with their own identities. Everybody's lifted their game. Guys that used to run in AM or Pro-Am are now fighting top 10 in Pro, sometimes even knocking on the door for top 5 and a podium. So that's what we want. We want guys to take it seriously, to take on the challenge, come and challenge the guys that have been competitive for so long. It's nice to see new names. It's awesome.
Absolutely. That is just where it comes in. Janneman, any thoughts from your side? I know you were watching the timing table as much as possible at this point, seeing it. And we're also going to bring Ryan Ottens into the commentary box. So Ryan Ottens, welcome to the commentary box. But Janneman, you were watching the timing table. Give us a bit of insight from your side of what you think of what was going on there, if you have any questions.
Well, firstly, very well done to Daniel on your victory tonight. But you touched on it a little bit earlier on in the conversation where you spoke about the tires of last night. But the question is actually, how much did the race last night help you in terms of tonight to figure out what the car is going to do over 55 minutes at least, and then taking it that half an hour extra. And also, I mean, how nervous were you about that pit stop that you still had to make with Cody Sherritt? Were you monitoring that gap quite closely or not?
Yeah, I think we definitely were. I was also worried a few times. Ryan and I ran into some traffic. I suspected Cody would at some point as well. To run an absolutely clean race is almost impossible. But yeah, I mean, last night helped a lot. The extra 25 minutes, you never know what's going to happen. But the fact that we could make the hour, you may as well take the chance and rather save the time in the pit. And it was rubbing as racing in the beginning. It was a hard fight. And the last bit was nerve-wracking. I actually thought Ryan was going to jump me because the Ferraris generally can take less fuel. So their pit stop is a bit shorter, but he made a small mistake, so it cost him a little bit, and I was surprised to jump ahead of Cody.
Let's actually let's bring Ryan Ottens in, because this was a bit of a fight. So Ryan Ottens, can you hear us there, buddy?
I can. What's
All
up?
right. So I just want to bring up the start of the race. It was you, Cody Sherritt, Daniel Rowe, 3 battle wide into this, and we started talking about how that's going to affect the long-term game of things, the tires and brakes, and starting to build up brake fade due to a little bit of heat, because now you've actually got into this close fight. How difficult is it to stay so close? And I mean, Zandvoort's one of these tracks that just doesn't quite have braking markers for you to find. You have to search around for an odd shrub or a bush or a tree that is pretty much your braking marker. How was it running so close and in this whole fight?
Yeah, it actually didn't end up being too bad. It didn't seem to have an effect on my car either. I think from yesterday's race, sitting behind Daniel for quite a while, at least in the first sort of half of the race, I guess I got used to it.
Absolutely phenomenal. And Yanaman, I know you got a few questions that you want to ask. So I'm going to leave a mic to you. I'm just going to quickly go and sort out my alternative power, but I know Yanaman has a few questions that he would like to ask you guys.
You just putting me on the spot here.
Just a tad.
Just a tad. Well, Ryan, well done on the third place. But I need to ask the difficult question. We saw you, Cody, and Daniel running very closely together for a very long period. My question is, were you keeping Cody in between the two of you intentionally, or was it just the way it worked out?
No, that was just the way it was. I mean, I did feel like I had some extra pace, but there wasn't an opportunity to pass. So unfortunately, I just had to sit there and see how the race went. It's a problem at Zandvoort. There's not many overtaking opportunities, and where my car was good, I couldn't pass, and where Cody's car was good, mine wasn't as. So it's unfortunate, but I had to just sit there and watch the boys in front tonight.
Yeah, and still, we had the discussion in the commentary box. Cody sitting in the middle of the two of you. It's not a very comfortable position to be, because you're trying to pass the car in front of you, but you also have the pressure from the car behind. So it is a difficult position to be in.
Yeah, for sure. I hope he was under pressure. That was the plan.
Now, heading to the last round, there's one race to go. It's a new track, so it is heading a bit into the unknown, because this is the first real official race on Valencia we're going to have. How are you guys going to approach it? Are you guys going to take it as it come, or is there the strategy that you guys kind of developed for Valencia yet?
No, I mean, it's a new track to everyone. So nobody's, I don't think, well, we haven't really raced there, so it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. All we can see is the races that the esports guys are doing, and from what we see, the new cars are fairly strong. So I'm not sure what the other cars are like. And I see the new McLaren is also even stronger, it seems. Maybe I'm wrong, but from what I saw, it looked damn strong. So yeah, it's going to be, I think Ryan will be in a good shape, along with, I mean, Cody and the others, Mayer, Porzio. Yeah, I suppose the rest of us in the older cars, it's going to be probably more of an unknown, because nobody is really running in the old cars in current races on that track. So, but I think we'll do fine. I think Ryan's prepared as well. Championship to fight there, Ryan.
No, not quite.
Well, I want
Team
quite.
championship.
Team champs maybe, but not the overall.
So it might be a long week of testing ahead to see how the cars behave on that track over a longer period of time.
Yeah, anything can happen.
I actually want to bring up a bit of a question, because we've seen it build up over the course of the season with the likes of Genesis Esports versus Hybrid Academy. We've got a bit of a battle going on now. I can compare it to the early days of Mercedes versus Red Bull, Ferrari versus the rest of the field. There's this definite teams trying to move forward, and I know it gets rather exciting because suddenly there's essentially two powerhouses that are coming to blows, and at the same time you both elevating each other's games at this point. How does it feel to have that? Because for a long time you guys were around and there wasn't really any massive powerhouse battles like what we've seen for season 3 of the Grid Championship. I mean, this is turning into a bit of a story arc that goes through, which we're getting to the final pages of it, and who knows when maybe we see the season 4 come out, and it's, well, let's see if we have a Netflix show of the whole thing, because it would really be a bit of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that from Hybrid side we're trying to grow the community, and from Genesis side it looks like they're just trying to degrade it by their little groupies sitting on YouTube every night and throwing comments. But yeah, they're upset. They thought I had a quali ban. They clearly can't read. So it's unfortunate that we've got this, but I guess it just stirs the pot and makes us better.
Well, there will always be those friction moments, and I think both teams have those friction moments. We do have those moving on, but just in general, in having the two teams battle it out, the two teams really having a bit of fun out there. Do you think you've now got into a point where the team championship is a bit of a mix of this, and it's come down to the last round? Do you think that Hybrid Academy has enough left in the tank to be able to go for that team championship, or do you think Genesis will be able to do it, or do you think that our other teams a little bit further down the field that may be the surprise around Valencia with the final round there, and how everything's unfolded and how guys have grown? Do you think this is going to be a very interesting fight for the teams into the team championship?
I think it's pretty much between our one hybrid team with Vega and Ryan, and Genesis with Cody and Giovanni. So at the moment they've got a little bit of a lead to our team, and they did a really good job tonight. They got the second and a fourth. So I think it's going to be hard to beat them in the last round. It'll be difficult for Ryan and Vega. But yeah, anything can happen, and that's how racing goes. Sometimes there's an upset. I remember my first season, I won the team championship, was with Keegan Masters, and I think we were doing it against ATK, and both McCalls crashed, and we won it. So anything can happen.
It's definitely coming down to the line. I do think that maybe at the end of the championship it would be nice to sit down with everyone. But thank you very much, Daniel Rowe, Ryan Ottens. Glad to have you guys here, and it's good to see you guys having a bit of fun out and really do keep battle. I really looking forward to seeing how it all turns out at Valencia for round number 8. And, well, the final round of the Grid Championship. Is there anyone that you want to thank before you move off
I'll thank my mom.
That works.
Just kidding.
I wasn't sure if I should laugh or not.
Obviously thanks to RaceFace and Baptist. The season's not over, but thanks for everything they do anyway. Thanks to you guys for taking the time to commentate for us. And thanks to the competitors for showing up and making a challenge between all the teams, and well done to Genesis tonight and the other teams. I haven't seen the list further down the order, but well done to everyone.
Absolutely incredible stuff. And thank you very much, Daniel Rowe, Ryan Otten. Really appreciate it. Glad to have you guys in the box. But
Thanks, James.
thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Yalaman, we hear there is a bit of tensions building up, but that's motorsport.
It is motorsport. You were mentioning, McLaren and Williams. You were mentioning Red Bull and Mercedes. I think this is more a Prost versus Senna type of deal.
We're getting into a very, very interesting situation.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to chat to the guys afterwards once the red mist goes down and just see how it's all moving forward, because I think we're going to have a very interesting discussion.
It's going to be an interesting last race.
There's no question.
While you were away, I don't know if you heard, we had a chat about Valencia being a new track. It's a bit of the unknown. It's the first official race. There might be some long testing sessions this week coming to figure out what the cars are doing there, because you don't have really any previous data to go on, even if it is on older versions of ACC. So, what is it? Put it this way, what's a good lap time around Valencia at this stage for the Pro Division, for the Grid Championship?
One that you don't fall off the circuit.
Not just that, but you don't have the previous data to go for. Some of these teams have spreadsheets of what is a good lap time with a certain car around a certain track, and they have it for all the cars, for all the tracks. Valencia, a bit of a new one, so it's a bit of a blank page on the old spreadsheet that they need to start filling in. They don't, as I said, they don't have the previous data to go by.
Well, it's going to be an interesting one. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you want to keep up with all the competition action happening, head over to twitch.tv/Mettlestate and hit the subscribe button along with the bell notification icon to be informed of all the competitions going on there. They also have Mettlestate out on YouTube, where they've been doing a lot of work on trying to figure out keyboards, which is quite funny because I can't build a keyboard for anything at this point. And there's quite some funny shorts there if you want to go and enjoy it. So head over to Mettlestate over on Twitch and on YouTube. Also, if you're out on YouTube, head over to RaceFace.Pro for all the action that's going out for our racing side. Coming up, though, we have our RaceFace Dirt Championship round number 7, Sunday 18th of June. We're going to be racing around Finland. Gotta love it, as we go and kick up a bit of mud, put some mud onto the wheel arches and ensure that we don't go and hit the photographers as we go launching ourselves around Finland. So keep an eye on Dirt Rally 2.0 over at RaceFace.Pro. Entries are still open for everyone to join in, come and have a bit of fun in the rally. Next week we have the final round of the RaceFace GT3 Sprint Series round number 8, Wednesday 21st of June around Valencia, where it's going to be a slide fest right to the end for all our drivers, and we can't wait to see how it's all going to work out. And then on the Thursday, we have the final round of the Mettlestate Grid Championship, brought to you by Mettlestate and RaceFace. Round number 8, final round to go for that prize pool of 10,000 Rand, 22nd of June, not to be missed. Team Championship still open. Championship for the Grid is open, and Season 3 coming to a close. It is not to be missed, so put a pin in that date. That is one you do not want to miss. Want to be there for the party, because it's going to go absolutely wild on the grandstands. And following that, on the 20th June, Tuesday, we've got a RaceFace iRacing TCR Championship, round number 3, the second last round of the iRacing TCR Championship, as our drivers head to Okayama International Raceway, where we'll see the best drivers in iRacing having a great fight. We also see a lot of real racing drivers going and having a bit of fun in the TCR cars, which is a little bit different to what they usually drive on iRacing. But Janeman, anything in closing from your side before we sign off?
A lot of racing to look forward to, Stephen, in the next week to come. And after that, as the season draws to a close, the